Hey, what's going on, everybody? You're alive with Osiris. Welcome to the Author's Lounge. I greatly appreciate everyone taking a moment out of their day to come by and tune in to today's episode. And just to reiterate, the purpose of this show is to inspire the next generation of writers. This next generation of writers can consist of those who want to write books, want to write screenplays, want to be a playwright, want to be some sort of a writer, all around. I seek out my guests who I seek out range from accomplished publishers to people to professionals within the book publishing niche. This also includes producers, directors, book publishing houses, book literary agents, entertainers, songwriters, singers. It is all tied into just wanting to inspire the next generation of writers through my guests. And so today, I have a wonderful individual whom I met in San Francisco during the San Francisco Writers Conference, who agreed to share her knowledge and share her experience on today's show. So I'm really excited to have her on. So our guest is a screenwriter and a television producer whose GLAAD award-winning work has appeared on NBC and USA networks. As of at the time of this recording, she considers her finest career moments to be developing the Jennifer Lopez series Shades of Blue, adapting the first ever Norwegian format for American television. That's incredible. Just FYI. Moving to Canada and successfully running a television shoot for 6 months, despite never having set foot on a television or film shoot before. Oh, and this one is probably going to make you all laugh a little bit. She accidentally sent her grocery list to Salma Hayek's assistant, not just once, but three freaking times. Yeah, I got to ask you about that one. So, hey, without any further ado, I present to you all the wonderful Jennifer Coté. Thank you so much for coming on board.
Thank you for having me, Osiris.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, okay, before I do anything, let's talk really quick about the the grocery list being sent to Salma Hayek's assistant three times. How did
Okay,
that happen?
so I know, right? Like that has to go on my highlights reel because how does this happen to a person?
Hmm.
So normally, like I come off as like kind of like a perfectionist person who's like always really on top of things, but I get hangry, like so bad hangry.
Hmm.
And I was working really, really late at the office one night and was texting my husband to just get us food on the way home, and they had really similar initials. So I think I'm sending off to my husband this laundry list of groceries to get at Trader Joe's, and I think I'm done. Then it dawns on me like, oh wait, I forgot something, and I shoot off. Oh wait, dog emoji, meat. The meat like emoji that's like the chicken
Yeah.
bone with like the bacon wrap, whatever the
Yep.
heck that is.
Yep.
So I sent that like 5 times too, and then like I'm doing my back to doing my work. Then I'm like, oh wait, and I text him again saying, if you want me to love you forever, can you go to Bristol Farms? Cookie emoji. And
Oh
like,
goodness.
and so like, maybe 15 minutes later, I realized my husband hasn't replied to me. And my first reaction isn't, oh crap, I sent this to Salma Hayek's assistant. It is, there are no cookies on the
Yeah.
way. And that was rough to realize at
That's funny.
really late at night. But
Yeah.
there were apologies involved, but we all make mistakes like that. Maybe not
That's
6 times,
hilarious.
but
Did she reply back to you or he, the assistant?
and she was like, no worries, I understand.
But I still want my cookies.
At that point, like we were all probably like in our own offices at our different ends of LA, just burning the midnight oil. So
Yeah. No, that's
you
awesome.
understand.
Yeah, so speaking of spouses, right? Like I know it to be an important feature, right? To have your loved one, your significant other, really be supportive of you. I've been gracious enough for my wife, for Melissa, to be able to just support me on my journey and vice versa.
Yeah.
But and our worlds are uniquely different, right? And what we do, whether it's actual full blown career or what we're doing on the side. But for you and your spouse, right? How has that been helpful for your career as a whole?
Oh my gosh. that my husband is so immensely supportive of what I do and also does not understand how I do it whatsoever. So, like for me, like I know a lot of writers who have writers as spouses, and they'll be talking about how they were brainstorming with somebody and how like at the dinner table one night, and I don't do that at all. Like he like my husband will know the title of something I'm working on, and he won't know anything else until it's done.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll talk to him generally about like the way I'm problem solving something. And that'll be actually really helpful to get like to not talk about it in specifics, but talk about the kind of problem that I'm solving. And he can relate to it from like, he works in like tech, and there's an entertainment side to what he does too. But like the problem solving that he will bring to the table will be really fresh eyes compared to somebody who is a writer. But yeah, support. I didn't really answer the question about supportiveness.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. You're just talking.
Having a supportive spouse is everything, as opposed to like sometimes when I was younger, I would kind of view people who competed with me. Sometimes that was bad. So if this was me like 20 years ago watching this podcast, hearing this podcast, I'd be like, break up with the person who's competing with you and not supporting you. My goodness.
No, and the reason why I asked you that question is because just the journey itself, people never do it alone.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to just dozens of people, not just on the show, but just in general. And the biggest piece is the support, their unit, those who are there for them when they're at their lowest, and being able to have someone, especially a spouse or just a significant other altogether, who is equally as supportive of the person's career as they are with their love for the person. It makes a world of difference. You feel like you don't have that doubt in your mind that, okay, hey, if I go off for like a week or so to do this, you'll up and leave me, you'll support me. And so given the entertainment business, I would imagine that your schedule along with his is crazy sometimes.
Yes. I did not think about that I did not realize how insane the schedule was going to be when I was first getting into the business.
Yeah.
There was the point where I was like, I had to move to the wilds of Canada that were in northern Ontario. That was it was like 2.5 hours of a drive away from any big airport. And I couldn't leave. I was the only writer and producer on set from like early Monday morning to really early Saturday morning. You can't go home for that. Like if my husband and I wanted to be together, he had to make that sacrifice and find a way to come to me. He had a crazy busy schedule too, but like there were points where he was shipping, he was on so many business trips that he was shipping luggage to Montreal so that he could then go to Northern Ontario to be with me, because otherwise we just wouldn't have been able to see each other enough. That wouldn't have been great for our relationship, because I mean, even as it was, that was really hard.
I bet. I bet. And just the entertainment business, like just for the short period of time that I was like embedded in it before I got into the military, I learned real quick that days of shooting can be long. 16-hour days could be a thing that you weren't even prepared for. But speaking of television and film, right? One of my questions that I have for you is, how did you get started with TV and film?
Okay, let's see. Long story. Trying to make it short. First of all, like I will just say, I did not know that screenwriting existed throughout my childhood and teens. And just anytime I was in college, I just did not know it was a thing. Like I'd seen some Woody Allen films where there were like snooty novelists or playwrights who lowered themselves to become screenwriters just so that they could make a buck. And that's what I thought that was.
Oh.
I did not know that it was a field. And so fiction writing was always that was what I aspired to. I scraped together a living writing every way I could, whether it was for writing for like really trashy, like local magazines, nightlife columns, like technical writing, speech writing, all of that stuff, and was doing that. And I decided to apply to my MFA in fiction so that I could write a novel for 2 years. And just so happened to be applying to school at the University of Texas at Austin. And I saw that they had a screenwriting program. It also just so happened to be like, if you applied to the fiction writing program, you could apply to screenwriting for free. And so I did this on a whim. And I was like, hey, that sounds interesting. That sounds like something that I could actually be really good at. I was a theater kid. I know things about scripts. And I got in. This is not normal, but and so the head of the screenwriting program was a former fiction writer who just basically read my work and thought it would really translate into film. And so that's how I ended up getting into that program. While I was living in Austin, I got to go to this, they have lots of film festivals there. So I went to South by Southwest Film Festival, Austin Film Festival, which is really big in screenwriting, and just got to pick everybody's brains there. And one thing they kept saying was, even if you're not in LA, find a way to work in film where you are. And so I interned with this director, Richard Linkletter, great Academy Award nominated director, and did that while I was in Austin finishing up my MFA. Then knew, for me personally, I was like, I'm going to move to LA. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to make it happen in LA. And I entered tons of screenwriting competitions. I made a short film and submitted to all these places. Nothing happened with it. I would always place kind of like as a finalist, semi-finalist, something like that in screenwriting competitions, but nothing was happening. So I started asking the judges and anybody I would meet at this film festivals, hey, first of all, how the heck they got their start, which you're doing now by asking me. But I'd ask them, hey, are you looking for a ghostwriter? Do you know anybody who's hiring a ghostwriter?
That's wise.
Because these were people who had read my work and they knew, so they actually had spent that time. And so they knew, okay, I can kind of trust her. And it was such a crapshoot. And occasionally I would find jobs that way. Occasionally, probably more often than not, I wouldn't. You tend not to remember the things that, all the rejections you get once you're really far away from it. But when you're in it, they're everything.
Yes.
They really are.
You sit in the corner somewhere just somebody pick me.
Yeah. And so the number one thing that I felt like I learned from being a ghostwriter was how to take notes. That you get you get feedback from people and just all these crazy ideas and you're like, okay, how do I implement this to actually make it better? And the thing of being a ghostwriter is you're kind of hidden behind the scenes, so you don't have people really seeing how negatively you're reacting to them at first. And that's a huge skill. Because that was another thing that I heard from people generally when I was talking to them at the film festivals is you need to learn to take notes. And what I wish I knew to begin with was how to take notes well and how to not be how to not explode my career, how to not explode opportunities because I was being so standoffish about notes that I would get, or just not being a baby and not taking them well. And that's what being a ghostwriter taught me. But so fast forward a little bit, my former professor, who is the one who just happenstance saw potential in me, he connected me to his former writing partner. And I started working in development for him and working on lots of pilots that we would get going at different studios. And one of those things that we had in the background was this project called Shades of Blue. And 3 years after I started working with him, that got greenlit to steer. It just magic started happening because it landed with Jennifer Lopez, and it got and that got greenlit to series at NBC. And as a result of that, like my former producing partner, we had like other opportunities just kind of like start coming.
Yeah.
So really it was that like connection, and that while the Shades of Blue writers room was open, that's when this foreign format called Eyewitness landed on my desk. And we got my boss, who was like an amazing salesperson and just knew how to spot these opportunities for like what was of the moment and like synergy. He pitched it just at the end of the meeting with the head of Universal Cable Productions, and he was like, "That we can make."
Right there.
And
Oh,
that
wow.
like that just everything was this fast tumble from there.
I think that the stories that you're telling, right? First of all, what a freaking journey that was. I think people fail to, I won't say fail to notice, but I think, especially now with the generation of people coming up, there is such this insatiable desire to want it right now and skip and go from A and go straight to Z. And there is like rejection is part of the game as a
Yes.
whole. And I don't know if of people coming into it are prepared for it because of what they're seeing across social media. And social media paints this picture of, hey, you can get it right now if you just do X, Y, and Z. But there's such a journey to it. So yeah, your story from how you went from writing these screenplays to making short films and then going to these film festivals and getting rejected across the board, and then you showing up and talking to the judges directly, like, hey, like, what's essentially what's going on, or hey, I'm a ghostwriter, I can help out in this facet. And you decided, so what you did, what I really loved, is you pivoted. And some people stay on just a one track mind, and you pivoted, and in that pivot other opportunities came that still tied in with the original goal, which was to be greenlit. And then here you go, and then NBC picks up your show with the journey. I mean, you worked with that an Oscar nominated director, and all these wonderful opportunities, and then Jennifer Lopez show and got picked up. And I'll ask you questions about that as well. But before I forget, breaking into the business, right, is tricky. But you've been around the block to know some things. But what would you do differently now if you were breaking into the business? Like if Jennifer Coté was breaking in now with the knowledge that you have now, what would you do
Okay.
differently?
So this is a two-pronged thing, and I would say they're both very important.
Okay.
One is the practical thing, and the other is more of a big picture thing. I'll tell you the practical thing first because everybody's going to be waiting for that. Which is, writers and producers of TV programs are so big on social media now that I probably would have, and I've heard of people having success at this, just reaching out to people you admire on social media and saying, hey, I really admire your work. Is there any way that I can help you? Or like, is there any way that I can buy you a coffee? And the really important thing about this idea is not to just be like, okay, I love Paradise, I'm going to contact Dan Fogelman. Dan Fogelman is probably not going to respond to you on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. You want to, because he's busy running the next season of Paradise. You want to contact somebody, if it's a show that's in the first season, something like that, look for somebody who's got a credit of co-executive producer, or look for a person who's actually at a much lower level, somebody who is credited as a script supervisor or a script coordinator, because these are the people who are actually like the nuts and bolts, like kind of like they're above the assistant level. But the fact that you went and you contacted them and you say, I want to learn your skill, they're going to be so flattered that you identified them. And same thing with like somebody who's at like a co-executive producer level. That person is like the person who generally runs the writer's room day in, day out. So they're gonna they're still really pressed for time, but
Yeah.
they're going to be more likely to be the person who responds to you on Twitter. But that's my number one practical piece of advice for you. Other than I think contests are great. But the more like big picture idea
Hmm.
is I was so zeroed in on how do I make this a career, and like I was like, let me get there fast, let me get there now. Like, yes, I talk about rejection, but I was so laser like hyper focused on building on just like getting a career climbing the ladder. And I feel like when I was in those long years of my life doing that, I took the ball off of my own brand a bit. I
Hmm.
took it like I wasn't quite as focused on, okay, what is my voice? What is my vision for the kind of show I personally want to be making in 15 years from now? That's a long time plan. So when
Hmm.
you're working 80-hour weeks, it's really hard to shift and think about that. But I like if I could go back, I wish that I just kind of thought about that a little bit more and always had that on my radar.
Okay, that's you gave some golden nuggets with that. The idea too is, and I'm glad you said the first part. What you said, I think both are important.
Mhm.
The second part about going to contests and things is it's definitely an approach that I don't think will ever be broken. I think that will always stay. I think like the first one with the social media is interchangeable depending on the platform of the social media that comes about and where people go and where they gravitate towards. But I think both approaches are really good. But what I really love about the first approach is we live in an era now where social media and your ability to be able to connect with those people that you weren't able to connect with like 20 years ago, it's literally at your fingertips. You just
Yeah.
have to have the courage and an account to go
Right.
and yeah and to reach out to them and just give it a shot and see what happens because you just don't know. I think like I recently I reached out to the original actor for Blippy because my oldest son loved Blippy and he's
Uh-huh.
a part of our family dynamic, and I was thinking he would be a wonderful person to really shed some light on his journey because he was also Air Force like myself, and I was just, you know what? Let me reach out. I didn't hear anything back from him, but I gave it a shot. But it's to your credit what you're saying. Just give it a shot and see what happens.
Yeah, you miss, it's such a cliche, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. You do. And like, just have the guts because like, in our minds, we think we think we're bothering somebody, right?
Mhm.
Like, that's what the little devil in our head says. But even if somebody doesn't respond, they're going to be flattered. Like, even if you don't get silence because somebody's annoyed that you reached out and said,
Right.
I love your work. They just don't have the time to respond.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that if they do respond, oh my gosh, your people they'll lose their minds in such a great way. But one of the other things I want to ask about because not everybody can go to Los Angeles,
Yeah.
California, or not everyone can go to New York and do their thing there. For me growing up, the mecca for show business, really for film, it was has always been Los Angeles, California.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to like pursue theater or Broadway, go to New York. But specifically with Los Angeles being the mecca, the hub for all things filmmaking, how can you really break into the business if you don't live out there? What's some advice you have on that?
Thank you. That's a great question because, first of all, I would always recommend finding some way to work in the business before making that leap to
Yeah.
LA because you'll have so much more confidence. You'll have something to put on your resume. So, even though LA really does remain the center, like, even if you move to LA and people are sending you to Canada, they're sending you all over the place to do a shoot, that LA is where people are who are making all of the decisions, and generally the top level creatives, that's where they tend to be based. But let's back up. How do we break in before we make that big move? So first of all, something I know you're a little familiar with, Osiris, is that there are tax breaks that make certain places around the country great locations to film a whole TV show or film movies. Georgia, Massachusetts, um, Utah, like, tend to be places right now that are a bit, but this, so never move somewhere because of this, because the tax breaks always change. Yeah. But chances are there is actually a film shoot going on in your area right now. Yeah. And just like figure out who is kind of low level. Ask, can you connect me to the production manager? I want to be a PA on this. Mm-hmm. Or if you happen to have another skill that applies, a couple skills that are insane, that give you an insane, unique view on the way a film is made: costumes, hair, makeup. Like, if you happen to have those skills, you get to go into this magical place called the tent, which is where directors and producers are, and the script supervisor, who's the person like who sits there with a clipboard, like trying to notice everything that's going wrong. That person's also in the tent. But if you happen to be trained in one of those skills, like just apply to be like an assistant makeup person or a hair person on something shooting close enough to your area. But if that doesn't if those stars don't align for you, one of the best ways to get experience is to look for screenwriting competitions and apply to be a judge. You can do this remotely, and you get to read. So this has like two things. It's something to put on your resume. You get better at reading scripts and understanding what works and what doesn't. And like automatically that will connect you to this film community. You'll usually get a free pass to get into whatever film festival this competition is connected to for free. So how do you get prepared to be a judge? I would say Google the concept of writing coverage for movies and TV. It's how you write a summary of what works, what doesn't, what something is. And if you can kind of show somebody that you're good at that, they'll hire you as a judge.
I really appreciate that knowledge. Because it is not just a matter of like just sharing the knowledge for people who wants to be like, because many people they see actors and I want to be the star. I want to be in front of the camera, but a lot of these opportunities are behind it. and I'm sure you're speaking from experience. Obviously I'm not in your position. I'm like an outsider looking in, but just the idea of even like in the publishing side, most of the opportunities really lie from behind, within the publishing house, not just the writer is a huge piece. That I think you can do nothing in entertainment and in business in general without an author, without somebody putting pen to paper. Between executive orders and stories and anything, it requires a writer. And so writers play a pivotal role in anything regarding storytelling, including, and I guess in that same notion, it's the same idea, like that painting of Marilyn Monroe, right? Requires somebody to be able to use their hand, and it requires a human being. I mean, well, maybe not now because it's AI, but before it required a human being,
it's always morphing. There's always going to be human intelligence involved on some level. The technology is just always new. We thought this when Photoshop came out. We thought Photoshop was destroying the world too.
Oh, right.
We aren't past the development of Photoshop. Like, we aren't at that point now with AI yet, but I think we're going to get there. So there's always going to be the human involved. Like,
no, for sure.
Yeah, that person might not be holding the brush in all of the strokes anymore, but
yeah, it saves time. I'll tell you that is if people can learn how to work with it versus against it and use it to your advantage, I think we'll all be just fine. But I do have another question regarding you as a producer. I know you breaking into the business, but how did you become a television producer? How did that work out for you?
Oh, so it's a weird thing, like the way that credit is in TV is strange. So I became a producer because I was a writer. So I got the opportunity to basically I had my working relationship with my former boss, who I met through a professor of mine. And the work that I did with him it just ended up being producing. But I got that job because I was a writer. And normally, like, once you're a TV writer in a writer's room, you progress the title writer, it goes like story editor, executive story editor, supervising producer, co-producer, the only writer title is a staff writer, and that's the absolute lowest form of a writer. So you actually you become, from where I became a producer because I was a writer.
Yeah.
But I also, in working in a lot of the work that I did, it wasn't just that I was a ghostwriter. I would do really big layouts of doing pitch decks and series Bibles and things that were like about working with directors, deciding who to cast, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I got to do that because I was a writer. But I'd always been doing that kind of under the surface too, if that makes sense.
I'm sure there's a lot of joy in coming through with that, when you have the opportunities to be able to be in a room and be part of a process of creating something magical. But I know you mentioned it earlier in the episode about working with the Oscar nominated director, Richard, is it Linklater or Linklater?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that like, working with somebody who has that to their resume?
And mind you, that was the absolute first film thing that I did while I was still living in Austin. Is I just applied to be an intern there because that was the most famous person there was that was in Austin by my standard. I was very familiar with his movies. I loved Before Sunset, Dazed and Confused. I'd seen 5 gazillion times. Working as an intern, what I had the opportunity to do, other than drive him to the airport many times and talk to him one-on-one, which is just such a gift. I'm just driving somebody to the airport. This sucks. No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
But so when I was just sitting in the office, theoretically answering phones, what I would do is read from a big shelf of scripts that his office had sitting around, and I would write coverage. So basically, for a director, your agent and manager send you tons of scripts that have funding and, this actor is attached. We want you to do this. You're going to make lots of money. And the director can't, a director, producer, none of those people can actually read all of this stuff themselves.
Right.
So whoever runs their production office, and usually starting with an assistant or an intern, that person does the first read. And I talked about this a little bit earlier. You write coverage. So I got to read these amazing scripts. Many of them are made now. Some of the ones that I was reading, Rick actually ended up making. But I got to have you get to choose okay, how strongly do you recommend this? How much do you not recommend it? And you get to learn what this person is looking for, what directors look for, what somebody who's an executive producer who's probably making more movies per year is looking for, can be really different. But getting to I had 2 passion projects that I thought were going to be these amazing hits, that I think I waged a campaign to him. You have to make this movie called The Necessary Death of Charlie Countryman. It wasn't for him, and but he loved the coverage that I wrote about it, so that made him trust me. But you get to learn what somebody wants as a director, and for me, in hindsight, actually, many years later, it makes rejection make a lot more sense and be a lot less personal. Now, just even having that perspective from him, because he wasn't looking for, is this good? I mean, yes, that's a requirement. But about how does this relate to his vision? What can he add to it? like what is he really passionate about making now? If nothing ticks all of those boxes, all those magical boxes, it's not going to be of interest to that particular person. And so say you're just trying to get your foot into one door with one really specific person to get them interested in your script, having that perspective makes it it's a lot less personal.
Yeah. But you took an opportunity where some people might look at it as I gotta and just sit in the car or sit in the vehicle and drive someone to and from an airport. But no, you took the opportunity as an opportunity and like made the best of it and have an opportunity to be able to work with somebody who has that type of accolade to their resume. It never hurts to at least pick their brain and get educated by them. But I wanted to ask you, and I've been holding you up for a little bit, so sorry for going over on time. Seems to be a common theme when I have people. We just vibe, I suppose,
The
right?
conversation gets rolling. I have no idea how
Yeah,
long we've been
no,
talking, by the way.
it's been awesome. It's been so great. So thank you for the breakdown on how you became a producer. So I know you're a screenwriter, right? Um you also went to school and got an education where regarding regarding what you do. So MFA, right? To MFA or to not MFA?
That
What
is
do
the
you say to
question.
that? That is the question.
Okay, so the best piece of advice I got when I was thinking about applying to MFAs was do not go into debt for this.
Mhm.
You're not becoming a dentist. You don't have it's you don't want you don't want to feel like you owe your creativity immediate success because you have to pay off this giant debt. So first of all, that is golden advice. And so if you're applying to MFAs and you get in, but it doesn't feel like it makes sense financially, it doesn't make sense. Find it like generally just find a different way to educate yourself. If you do get in and it happens to line up financially, then that's a great opportunity to follow. But if you fall into that category of either not having it be able to work out financially or not getting in, it's not necessarily like not everybody gets in either, and that's not gonna doom you. It doesn't mean you aren't absolutely talented and you don't have an amazing story, many
Right.
stories to share with the world. You can educate yourself in different ways, and like I brought visual props to my desk.
Oh,
One is Save the Cat. I think a lot of people have heard of that book. That's by Blake Snyder. And the other is The Tools of Screenwriting. The name David Howard, he has this list of, he breaks down the structure of movies into 8 sequences. And so really it's like, I think you can find it online. Just Google David Howard 8 sequences. And that has been the center of how I think about story ever since I discovered it. And like, I think that you can piece together things that a lot of people get from an MFA from doing some of the things that I was talking about earlier, like volunteering to judge a screenwriting competition, just volunteering at a writing festival, those kinds of things, finding a writers group where people's skill levels match up to yours or maybe are a little bit more advanced than yours, and getting the heck out of writers groups that aren't working for you really fast.
yeah.
There are those. I have been in a lot of those. So that's kind of how I would piece together an MFA education on my own.
Okay. Well, thank you for that breakdown as well. Because I think I really like the idea of you shouldn't have to essentially you shouldn't have to fund your creativity. Some people
Right.
go and like have this preconceived notion that I must go to school, which all power to anyone who does that. Not knocking it either way. But that idea of man, I might get into some significant student debt if I do this, is it worth it? And then, to your credit, if you have the funds to support it to where you won't be in a hole, by all
Mhm.
means. But there are absolutely multiple ways to go about achieving a goal. And
Yes.
to your credit, right? No one told you to say, dang, you know what? All these rejections that I'm receiving early on, what else should I do? You got and you thought of ways that would work, becoming a ghostwriter happen to open up a door. And so for that same person, if school doesn't necessarily work out for them, there are other opportunities that can help that person have more opportunities opened for them. So speaking of show business, right? When it comes to creativity and your own work, what's the importance? And I'm not just talking with books, but with film. What's the importance of owning your own IP? Sorry, for those who don't know, IP is intellectual property. But for what would you say? How? What's the importance of owning your own IP?
It is vital.
Yeah.
That is what you are sharing with the world. That is the commodity that you have to sell. I heard this phrase that I just quote all the time. I don't know whether he was the initial person who said it, but this director, Dean Perso, he like won an Academy Award for a short film and made Mars Attack, I think is what the movie's
Mhm.
called. He says everyone wants to be first to be second, which
Wow.
essentially means everybody wants to know that somebody likes this, that this exists and is like it's viable before
Yeah.
I pounce and I love it.
Hmm.
So that's what makes um owning that's what makes having a novel, having articles that you've written and published, having a poem collection that's #1 on Amazon, or all of these
Yeah.
things. That's what makes you really interesting to people, to have other doors open to you.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and I mean,
Okay.
just and also the show that I made that was the limited series in Canada that was based on a Norwegian format, what made that get greenlit right away was the fact that it existed as this 6-episode television series in Norway, and it had been proven. So that got it greenlit so much faster than it would have been otherwise, because it existed in this one other way.
Yeah.
And then we made it into an American series.
That is wild in a good way. I love the idea, right, of just stories being able to evolve and turn into other great products. So speaking of stories, I know you're a screenwriter, but you're also an author. But how does screenplays and books? Better question is, how does Hollywood and book publishing, or how are they interlocked? Yeah, how do they
Intertwined.
intertwine with each other? Yeah, intertwine.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I think so they're so interconnected that it's like, yeah, they are technically separate industries, but I feel like the goal in publishing is to get your book optioned as a movie or as a TV show.
Hmm.
And as somebody working in Hollywood, generally, what I came to learn eventually was, okay, if I want to have my own stuff made, it'll really help me if it's a book
Yeah.
beforehand. It'll help me if, I mean, just going back, the old movie like Coyote Ugly, that's only a
Mhm.
movie because Elizabeth Gilbert wrote it as like an Atlantic article.
Hmm.
That became a movie because that hit article existed. And Hollywood loves taking from something that already exists. So it goes back to the everybody wants to be first to be second
Yeah.
concept. That I feel like publishing, and depending on who you talk to, people will say, "Oh, I'll publish the book if somebody sells the movie rights first. I'll make the movie if you sell the book rights first." So you never,
Hmm.
chicken and the egg. We never know. There are no guarantees,
Right.
but it's so connected, and I think that having a publishing presence and just getting your voice out there as an author, like writing articles, like having online articles and things like
Hmm.
that, really helps you build a career in the entertainment industry.
Oh no, for sure. So you write your own book, right? But you're also a TV producer. Are
Mhm.
you going to say, you know what? I have this experience as a TV producer. I also I'm writing a novel. How about I am the one responsible for turning my book into it? Is that like a thought that you have, or do you have to go through other channels because of whatever the reasons may be?
Good question. That's like, so for me personally, I don't know whether I'll reach that point in my career where I'm eventually like, okay, I want to figure out how to be the studio and like actually like making a TV show on your own. I don't. That's really hard. Like if you were to do some kind of like animated thing, maybe that would be possible. I don't know. AI, who knows? These things are just unknown to me right now. But like I feel like making an independent movie might be something that I'd like. It would have to be the right project, because you have to just think what's realistic to make on your own,
Hmm.
and not a lot is. Filmmaking is hard and it is expensive. So yeah, like if you have the grassroots knowledge and the right connections to just like really scrappy young directors, that kind of thing, like you can make it happen, but it has to be the right project.
I like
Um,
it. Oh, sorry.
no. But like say I was like, okay, I feel like some younger listeners out there might think this question often of, okay, I've written a book. Do I write the screenplay of it? Like if that's something somebody's considering, like, okay, will this open doors for me? No. The answer is no. Like unless you write the next book, because like it gets back to the IP question of just keep building your library and your brand that somebody can go on to Amazon and keep becoming a bigger and bigger fan of your work, and then somebody down the line will hire you to write a screenplay of your work. That's the ultimate goal.
That's and that process is the one of not going jumping from A to Z. You got to go through the channels and also networking as well. That so I have about two more questions to ask you because you
Yeah, yeah.
mentioned knowing the right people or knowing people or writing groups. So networking is a huge factor. I learned that as a child of how important your circle is, but how pivotal is it for a person to network even if they're an introvert?
Oh.
Oh,
So you can't tell this about me. I am actually an introvert.
oh,
Like, no, that's BS. But I am a rare introvert who actually enjoys public speaking.
yeah.
So I'm lucky.
Hmm.
But conferences exhaust me. Like I go back to my hotel room and I collapse like when I walk in the door.
Hmm.
And, but the thing is, if you, no matter how extreme you are on the introverted versus extroverted spectrum, like, take a step back and figure out what you are good at. What are the kind, like, how do you interact with people well?
Hmm.
What settings do you actually have the best kind of conversations? And don't set yourself up to be networking in a way that is designed for somebody else. And like, so that might sound like I'm saying, okay, yeah, don't go to the networking event that is designed just for the people who are great at having cocktail conversation at a bar. No. I'm saying, like, actually generally go to that event,
Yeah.
but figure out how do you set yourself up to have the kind of conversations that really make you shine. Like, is
Hmm.
it like having this one on, like, if you are better at one-on-one conversations, which generally introverts are,
Yeah.
you want the like the deep connection instead of just talking about the weather.
For sure.
So figure out, like, oh hey, can I buy you a coffee? Can I pick your brain about this? Like, just let yourself step back and come up with a specific question for somebody who you really admire, and go from that specific question. Let yourself lean into what you are actually good at.
Mm. Lean into what you're actually good at. That is that's gold. I love that. Um, I think that man, I have like 30 questions I want to ask you, but I'll ask you just one more, one more
Yeah.
question. I think this is a good one. What advice would you have, like directly, what advice would you have for the next generation of writers as a whole that just wants to break into being being a storyteller?
Oh, wow. The next generation, I believe in your uniqueness. I think, and follow what really makes you excited. We can have so many ideas that we want to tell right now. And sometimes when we're really anxious to break into an industry, we actually put pressure on ourselves to follow what we think is going to be commercial. We
Hmm.
kind of which is cool. It's cool to be aware of that kind of and always think about okay, how do I lean into making this more commercial? But never start a project because you think it's going to be popular. Do
Hmm.
something because it is whatever lights your soul on fire right now,
Hmm.
because that is what you in this moment have to share.
Right now. We'll do it right now. I was just talking to my niece
Yeah.
yesterday because she was excited about the success of her book, and she has friends and family saying, "You should do this, you should do this," and she's having all these ideas. And I told her, block out all the noise. Only work on something that you feel you have a reason to do it. Like, what's the actual message as to why you want to tell the story? Because it's
Yeah.
easy to have all these ideas and say, "Oh, I have an idea. Oh, it's about to be Halloween. Let me just do something about Halloween." I might not have a specific message, but oh, it's Halloween, let me do it. Oh, it's Christmas, it's Thanksgiving. But like, what's the actual message behind it? That will be pulled from the soul, and then that's what can be poured into the story, and then that's what can go forward. And if something comes out of it, something comes out of it. But I agree with you on the notion of you it's got to come from here.
Yeah, it's got to
It's
be at a
it's
soul level, and it's got to be it's got to be personal. I think when anybody's looking at a book to read or an idea to buy, say they're an agent, they're looking for why do I want to know this story from you? Everybody, you actually so many people can actually pitch the same idea constantly. Like
yeah.
if you're a book agent or a producer, you hear the same thing so often, and it's as a writer, you can step back and be like, oh, that's really depressing. But actually, no, it's just a guide saying, why am I the one telling this story? What is my story here?
Hmm.
Not just what is the story about Halloween? What is Halloween to me? Unless the what
Exactly.
Halloween is to me and what it really means on a visceral soul level is there, the story's not going to be great.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. And I think ultimately it just comes down to just not being afraid to speak in your own voice. Because some people feel like I can't speak a certain way because of where I'm from, or I have to talk a certain way to be recognized. And that even if the person is good at convincing themselves that they can speak a certain way and they be conveyed to the audience that, oh, I really love the way that this person speaks, eventually the truth will come out. And then in that truth, two things will be revealed: that you were pretending to be something that you're not, and that the people who were supporting you won't support you anymore because they thought you were something that you were not. And so it's
Yeah.
just ultimately it's just good to just be who you are, um, and be kind too. I think people forget to just simply be kind. Just be respectful. There's no reason to be cruel and mean and rude to people. Just be kind. I mean, and be respectful and call it a day. It's not that hard.
That is great life advice. I think we've all learned a lot just from that right there,
Oh,
Osiris.
oh yes. Oh
Right?
no way, no way.
Just be kind. Come on.
That's it. But hey, I thank you so much for coming on the show, Jennifer. I really appreciate it, and this has been wonderful. Definitely going to continue to stay in touch with you, and I'm looking forward to hearing what your next projects are going to be. One other thing, about your book, I know that you want to get traditionally published, so I got my fingers crossed for you that you're going to get that. And you've been hyper focused in the past, and still are, but to be able to get to what you want, so I don't doubt that you're going to get to what you need. So when that time comes, if you need a platform to go back on and promote your stuff, let me know. And I'm sure you don't need my help, but I'm here to help as well if you need it.
I would love to come back and tell everybody about all of my embarrassing mistakes again.
Oh yeah, no, that one I definitely would. That is awesome. Okay, yeah, we'll get that on the schedule for sure. But
Thank you so much, Osiris.
thank you so much, and thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to tune into today's episode. I hope you learned a lot. It was wonderful. It was like a master class that she delivered. Hey, you all take care, and I'll catch you next time.